It's time for Agriculture, presented by Turkana Farms in Germantown, New York, a small-scale producer of heritage breed livestock and a wide array of vegetables and berries on just over 39 acres. They also produce a full array of garden vegetables, many of them heirloom varieties raised naturally, as well as an assortment of berries, including raspberries, blackberries, gooseberries, black, red, and white currants, mulberries, and elderberries. And now, here's Mark Scherzer.
Last week I told of my observing my elderly neighbor in Sag Harbor, Mrs. Thayer, waving a white flag for help during Hurricane Gloria, only to find when I ran across the street that it was in fact a dust rag I had seen, which she was using to clean her living room. Within hours after sending out the written version of my bulletin, I got a message from my sister, Jolie, in Pittsburgh. She herself remembered the event vividly, she told me. There was just one detail I got wrong. It was not my partner Peter I had consulted before running out. He was not even there. It was Jolie and I who debated whether I should brave the storm to come to Mrs. Thayer's rescue. As Jolie reminded me, she and her husband, this was before the arrival of any niece or nephew, were vacationing at the house while Peter and I had gone back to the city. Hearing the hurricane predictions, I had decided to go back out to Sag Harbor to help batten down the house while Peter stayed in the city. I was embarrassed by my slip, although relieved I had at least gotten the main points of the story right. I was also kind of intrigued by the workings of my memory, which that slip and other recent events revealed. Much of the 2 previous weeks had been spent in almost daily hanging out, meals, drinks, walks, and drives, with 4 different college friends. One of them, my friend George, I see virtually weekly, and our lives and activities intertwine in a way that we don't review our history all that much. But visits with the others, Doug and Susie and Bruce, tend to happen months and more recently, thanks to COVID, years apart. At such reunions, one is more likely to reminisce about times long past. As we reconstructed our distant pasts, I didn't always remember things the way my friends do. We, for example, debated the layout of a house we had rented in the 1972-73 school year. We all agreed that there was a balcony overhanging the living room, but virtually everyone else thought the living room was to the right when you entered the front door, while I remembered it to the left. Of greater moment, I thought Bruce had lived in that house during the summer of 1973. Bruce assured me he had not. It's just that he came over to hang out for long stretches, frequently enough that it seemed like he lived there. Over dinner on our last night together, I determined that neither Susie nor her husband nor George had ever seen The Great Beauty, which I consider one of the more profound movies of the last decade. I convinced them that we should watch it. As we did, I became convinced that 3 or 4 scenes had been shortened from the version I had initially seen in the theater. There were details I thought were missing, and I described those details. The following day, George and Susie did some sleuthing and found that the length of the film we had seen, 2 hours and 20 minutes, was exactly the same length as the original theatrical release. One can say that my recollection is a testament to the skill of the director. He suggested by foreshadowing what would happen off-screen, and I interpolated in my memory that it actually did happen on-screen. But you can also say that it's an illustration of the tricks, not that my memory plays on me, but that I play on my memory. I retain the main points of the story, but it seems I supply some supporting details that logically to my mind would be there, whether they actually happened or not. The coincidence of all these episodes of creative memory have given me great pause. In numerous discussions with George, in which I have had to admit to not remembering things he recalls, I have contended that I may not remember everything, but what I do remember, I definitely remember. I'm not so sure that's true right now. And I wonder whether at some point I will transition from supplying extraneous supporting facts around a kernel of truth to creating the kernel itself. When does reminiscence become fiction? This week I decided I should suspend my recollecting and focus on being in the moment. It is indeed a distinct moment, the days when summer draws down. I try to gorge myself now on sweet corn and tomatoes, knowing that their season will soon be past. I still pick blackberries and peaches every morning to add to my breakfast yogurt, but I know that it's just days before I must transition to raspberries and pears. I've given up trying to find usable purslane in the garden, but I've planted spinach, which I think I'll be able to use in some of the same ways. The shortened days have already led to declining egg production among the chickens. but it's in the wildlife, not the domesticated animals, that you sense preparation for the changing season. Little critters are beginning to move back into the house. Squirrels are busy squirreling away winter food, while other animals are storing energy by consuming it. Thursday, coming back from the barn, I encountered the groundhog who lives behind the woodshed. It was waddling back toward its home, clearly planning a stop under the peach tree to feast on the remaining fallen fruit on the ground. I thought, this animal has been tanking up. As for me, there's always a certain melancholy associated with back-to-school time. After the luxury of boundless work opportunity that comes with summer, I lament nature's stinginess with daylight. Yesterday, my office work kept me at my desk until 6. A month ago, that would have been no problem, but now I have to act with some urgency if I want to do chores, do an hour more of garden work, and get an outdoor shower in before dark. I managed it, but by the time I peeled off my sweaty clothes at 7:45, it seemed twilight was upon us. I heard a chorus of howling coyotes, closer than they had sounded in some months. As the hot water ran over me, I looked up at the gray-purple sky and watched a pair of bats zooming back and forth overhead. I realized they were gorging on the insects of summer while it was still possible. I liked that we were engaged in what seemed the same endeavor, wringing out the last drops of summer. At least, that's as I recall it now.
Agriculture is underwritten by Turkana Farms, LLC, a small-scale producer of heritage-bred livestock and a wide array of vegetables and berries on just over 39 acres in Germantown, New York. More information, 518-537-3815.